Hello students. So today we will be continuing the sixth lecture of the lecture series on safety and occupational health. And the subject code is AME 803A as per MACOR syllabus. Today's topic is safety analysis and risk management. I am your educator Tanmay Haldar. So without wasting any time, let's start. First of all, what is job safety analysis, right? So basically, job safety analysis is a process of planning for work with safety as an integral factor of the way of the job done. It is a method of ensuring that sufficiently skilled manpower, plant, equipment, and materials are allocated for a task and all persons ultimately involved are aware and follow the safe system of work. Now imagine yourself at a company, right? So while a job will be proceeding, a job is in making, right? In that place, in that time, right? In the time when job is being done, the job safety analysis is an integral part. At that time, you are just what you are ensuring that the manpower is sufficiently skilled, the equipment in the plant is safe enough for the person to complete the job. Also, the materials are used. The materials which are being used are less hazardous or does not harm the people or does not cause any accident. Right? You have to ensure all these things. This is called job safety analysis, by which means you ensure these things are called job safety analysis. Right? Now let's just move to the next slide. Next slide is work requiring a job safety analysis. When you are doing a job safety analysis, what are the things that you require? First of all, the tasks that have a history or potential or injury near misses or related incidents. Right? You have to consider which things, the tasks which have a history of injury or at least near misses that could have lead to accident, but the accident has not happened anyway. That kind of task. Safety critical tasks, example fire explosion, chemical spills, etc. Also, you have to take care of the what where there might be fire or explosion or might be chemical spills. You have to take care of that as well. You have to consider those tasks as well. Also, the tasks carried out in new environment. See, when a task is being carried out in a new environment, what's going on there? You do not have sufficient data about that environment, so you do not predict the accidental reasons over there, right? Accurately. That is why you need to take a good precaution about the environment, right? Job that have changed. Also, when a job has been changed or the way the job is being done has been changed, what will happen? Also, you do not have a history of that, so you lack experience about the job at the present scenario. So you have to take special care of that as well. You have to consider that one. Then tasks that have been rarely performed or where new people are performing a task. Again, same thing with a different context. The task which has been rarely performed has very less frequency of that job, and that implies that you do not have enough experience at that job, right? Or that job does not have enough history to predict whether it is safe or not. That is why you need to take special care of that. The same thing goes for when a new employee or new person is completing the job or doing the job, right? Next is task where workplace application or environmental conditions have or may change. Again, same thing with a different context. Task performed under permit to work. Right? Now again, task performed under permit to work condition. There are several places where you are not permit to enter. Right? There are special person who are permit to enter. So if the task is being carried out over there, you need to know, you need to be aware about the situation in there. What are the situations, right? That is why those tasks will take several concern or a different special concern, right? Next is tasks that may impact on the integrity or output of the processing system, right? Also the task which will impact the integrity or output of the whole processing system will have to take into consideration because this will affect the whole process. All right. Now let's go to the next one, that is development of a safety analysis. Now, when you will be developing a safety analysis procedure, what will you see, right? First of all, supervisors develop a JSA, that is job safety analysis, in conclusion with the employees, and the following steps can be taken. First of all, supervisors won't take the decisions alone. They will have to consult with the employees as well because they are the people who will be doing the work, right? So they have to consult with the employees, then they have to design this safety analysis or develop this safety analysis, right? What are the steps of this safety analysis? First of all, review the scope of the job and work plan with the assigned employees. You have to review it with the employees who are working on it. Secondly, identify each task and the job and review the assigned employees. Again, you have to identify the job separately, right? What are the jobs associated with the work plan, right? Or a workplace. Then you have to review it with the assigned employees, the employees who are going to do that individual job. Okay. Identify the procedures involved with each task to be completed. Again, if suppose you are doing a job, the job is to make a gear. Now there can be several procedures associated with that job, right? Surface finishing might be there, broaching might be there, right? Material cutting or shaping might be there. There might be several processes. Boarding might be there. So again, you have to identify those several procedures and you have to take consider of each procedures at a time, right? Review the procedures in logical steps. Then you have to review the procedures in a logical steps. Then identify the assets and hazard in each step. For example, while you are broaching, you have to be careful so that your hand do not go into the machine like that, right? So identify the hazards in the each step. What might be the hazards and how can you take precautions about that? You might ask the employee not to go too close to the machine, or if there is a possibility of getting shock, then you can ask the employee to check the switches before uh, operating the machines, right? Like that. Now, development solution of or eliminate or control the hazards in each step. Right? Now, once the hazard has been identified, you can either eliminate it or control it, right? And for that, you have to develop some solutions. So that is what has been stated over here. Now let's go to the next one. Permit to work system. I have already mentioned the permit to work system is what? There will be a person responsible for permission give to give permission in a work system to work, right? So that person is responsible for that specific region of work, and he do know or he manages from the maintenance to the equipment to the raw material, everything about the place. That is why he knows this place, and that is when he can give a written authority to a person to work here. That is called permit to work. Okay. Now let's go to the next one, which is personal protective equipment. Now again, what are personal protective equipment? First of all, this is a false sense of protection. Why, I will tell you. Okay, because this should be the last thing to be worried about, but we do think that this is the most primary thing, right? Because PPE or personal protective equipment never eliminate the hazard. It just takes care of you in case of any accident. It just protects you to certain extent. It's like you facing a bike accident wearing a helmet. And helmet is your personal protective equipment over here. Helmet is a PPE. This is saving your life, but you might as well get admitted to a hospital if you face an accident, right? It is not compulsorily. It is 100% accident proof. You might, if you get into an accident riding a bike, you might die as well. You might go get admitted into hospital, but it does give you a is it does protect you from the worst outcome. All right. So this is what personal protective equipment does, right? It won't always save you from the hazard or accident, but to some extent it does save you. So this should be the last concern, not the first concern about the safety. So the first concern should be eliminating the hazard. And these are the things that have been written over here. They are the reason why it should be the last resort and not the first one. First of all, use of PPE does not reduce the hazard at source. It doesn't, right? If the PPE fails, the failure is not detected, the risk increases significantly. Suppose the helmet you're wearing while riding a bike is not that hard or does not protect your head the way it's supposed to do, then what will happen? You're safe in your mind, you're confident in your mind that okay, nothing will happen to my head. But incidentally, if you if you fell into an accident, suppose you got injured and your head got injured as well, right? So the risk increased significantly. If you did not wear the helmet, you would not have even speed up the bike that much that you have wearing the helmet, right? Second is what? Third is what? People may this should be fail to wear equipment particularly for one of quick job, right? Again, if you have a small quick job, you're thinking about I have to wear this much of things again. So you thought no, let's just pass that bit and let's just do the work. Now, if due to PPE, if the management thinks you do have PPE and thinking that he does not remove the hazard and you are not wearing your PPE, then you are actually being exposed to the hazard, right? So that is why it also it sometimes fails or it gives it might just increase the hazard for you or increase the chance of accident for you. The people believe that they are safe when wearing PPE and may place themselves at a higher risk. Again, as I told you, the example of the bike and helmet. Choosing PPE as the first option inappropriately shifts the responsibility from the employer to the employee. Now the employer has some responsibility, right? Like ensuring your health, ensuring that there is no hazard. But while you're choosing PPE, actually the responsibility, while you're choosing PPE and if your PPEs are chosen wrongly or if you're not wearing them, then what will happen? The responsibility shifts to the employee instead of employer, right? Understood? Okay, now let's go to the next slide. Program elements, right? What are the program elements for risk management? First of all, management commitment. Secondly, consultation with employees. Third, purchasing policy. Management commitment is that they will provide you PPEs, they will eliminate all the hazards, and they will supervise you so that you do not meet any accident or do not cause any hazard as well, right? This is management commitment. The consultation with the employees, the management will consult with the employees to best fit to find the best way to manage any risk because employees are the one who will be exposed to the risk. So you cannot just force them to do something, right? You have to talk with them, you have to consult with them, then you have to develop a protocol or a set of rules. Then you can make the employees follow that rule, right? And third one is purchasing policy. So there has to be a purchasing policy where the equipment, the appropriateness and adequacy of the equipment will be there. That means the equipment you purchase should have a good quality and should the equipment should be delivered fast so that the workers does not have to wait much, right? Also, also the equipment should be of at a reasonable cost. Otherwise, ultimately, the firm or the workplace or the company will get hampered, right? So there will be balance. There should be a balance. All right. Now let's go to the next one because that is clear this one. Let's go to the next one. Okay, so selection and important factors in the use of PP. What should be the important factors while you are choosing a PP? First of all, PP is personal. PP is personal, right? It should remain personal. That means for an individual, there should be a set of individual PP, right? It is not like you do have a mask, then another person is using that same mask. That should not be like the case. That should not be the case. The PP should be personal for an individual. Secondly, employee would be properly trained in proper maintenance of the PP and they also need to know how to store the PP and minimize wear tear as well as proper disposal of the PP. Right? For example, whoever will be using this PP, that person should know how to wear the PPs how to maintain those PPA. For example, a grinder will need a glass for as their PPA, so that any chip does not enter into his eye. Right? So uh, when he will take off his glasses, he just should not throw it away. He should keep it uh, he softly on his rack or into his almirah or dormitory somewhere safe, so that it does not break or there is no scratch on the glass, right? Similarly, when a medical worker is working, a medical person is working wearing mask, he should know how to dispose that surgical mask, right? The third one is PP must be comfortable and fit properly for adequate use of protection. Right? Now see, in construction sites, PP, the employees are given safety shoes to work, right? Because there are various various components are there, various iron metallic components are there, big structures are there, so that you do not get yourself injured. That is why they are given safety shoes. Right? Now, if a person needs a safety shoe of number 8 and he is given a safety shoe of number 14, what will happen? He won't be comfortable in the shoes, right? And he might stumble upon something and he might get himself injured. That is why the the PP must be comfortable and fit properly. Alright. Now let's go to the next slide. That is risk management processes. What are the risk management processes? First of all, let's just know about risk management objective. The objective of risk management is what? To reduce or minimize the likelihood of loss producing event occurring. Right? So we have to minimize the loss which is being produced due to some events occurred or due to accident. Right? We have to minimize that loss. Second is reduce or minimize the adverse effect once the event has occurred. Suppose the accident has been occurred already, right? So you have to minimize the adverse or financial effect, how that loss can be minimized, right? The accident is going on, now you have to know how it has to be stopped or how to minimize the loss. Suppose there is a fire at your workplace, right? So you have to put out that fire, otherwise much more financial loss can be there, or much more, not just financial, other losses can be there as well, right? So you have to reduce it. Third one is deal with the event while it is occurring in an attempt to recover from the loss with the least possible consequences. Again, the third one is see, when it is occurring, then I have to deal with it so that the losses can be minimized. Alright. So let's go to the next one. All right. So what is the risk management concerned with? Risk management is concerned with basically this part. Okay, risk management is concerned with basically these steps. First of one is what? The exposure of organizations' property and assets to losses caused by fire, explosion, loss, accident, damages, and etc. and similar perils. Right? The exposure of the organization's labor to injury and disease, etc. And third one is exposure of organization capital structure to liabilities, employees and the public at large, which result from unwanted human behavior or by products of the farm activity. Right? These factors should be taken into account while we are doing risk management. Okay, now let's move to the next one. So what is risk? If we put the risk numerically, the value of risk would be probability of occurrence multiplied by financial consequences. Okay, so if we just decrease one of them, then the risk will decrease significantly. If I decrease financial consequences or probability of occurrence by some fraction, the risk will decrease by that fraction only. Similarly, if any of that any of these two factors increases, the risk will increase severely, right? Now let's go to the next one. Now there are four steps of risk management. There are four steps of risk management. The first one is risk identification. First of all, what we will do, we will just see what are the risks in the work or what are the risks in the procedure, right? How can we do it? We can do it by error analysis, where we will be seeing what are the possible human errors are there. Second is failure mode analysis. We will be seeing what are the systematic failure can happen. Third is failure mode and effect analysis. There we will see or estimate the severity of the effect of occurrence, right? So in first two, we will try to stop any, we will try to detect any failure or any accident. In third step, we will see if any accident happens, the what will be severity of that accident, right? Magnitude of the accident. The fourth one is quality analysis, where we will be analyze the possible causes and factor leading to those leading to those causes, right? And the fifth one is hazard and operability study. Hazard means hazard and operability study, which is the review of the consequences and likelihood of different processes of the system abnormalities. Suppose there are system abnormality, so what can be the different consequences due to that? Okay, this is called risk identification. The second one will be what? The second one is, first we have already identified the risk. The second one is risk evaluation. Once the risk has been identified, we will see how much loss can be there if the risk converts into accident, right? So there are some techniques to assess the loss. The first one is maximum foreseeable loss. That means at max this much loss will happen, right? Evaluating that is called maximum foreseeable loss. Second is estimated maximum loss. That means you will estimate it. Foreseeable means you are predicting it. Estimated means you will be estimating it from a single event, right? From a single event that this event has happened, and for this much maximum loss can happen, right? The third one is normal loss expenditure. In this case, you will just calculate the average loss for the risk, right? Now let's come to the third step. Third step is risk control. Now once you have identified the risk, second you have evaluated the risk. In third, you are control. You are trying to control the risk, right? There are four. There are four tools for controlling the risk. First of all is what? First is eliminating the hazard. Second is what? Second is substituting it. Third is what? Third is just isolating it. These are the ways how you can control the risk. Okay, and let's go to the next one. This will be the final one. This is risk financing. That means suppose the risk has happened, now you might be covered from the risk or from the losses by what? Like by some previously taken policies like insurance. Okay, you've heard people having insurance for their shops or their workplaces or their cars, right? So this insurance come into help in that cases. Okay, so this is risk financing, and I think that's it for today. So this is the end of the session. I hope you like this session. If there is any question, let me know in the comment section. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe, study. Thank you very much.